The new Canadian government invested a great deal of money and political capital into opening the prairies to farming and settlement. They bought Rupert's Land from the Hudson's Bay Company in 1870. They created the Northwest Mounted Police to establish control of the region in 1873. They negotiated Treaties 4, 6, and 7 to create a legal framework for the prime agricultural land north of the 49th parallel. The government helped the railways extend into the region and sent the army to defeat the Métis resistance. With the collapse of the bison population, the Canadian government broke the treaties and used starvation to force the First Nations onto reserves, and then used the pass system in the aftermath of the 1885 resistance to restrict their movement. All this effort created a new landscape ripe for development into wheat farms. But very few settlers chose the harsh northern climate over the more established homesteading opportunities in the United States. Canada realized it needed to recruit settlers, focusing first on white Americans and farmers from Great Britain, but eventually extending its efforts to white Christians from other regions of Europe. Agnes Dean Cameron was the most famous of these recruiters. Cameron was a prominent teacher, adventurer, and principal in Victoria, British Columbia, before turning to journalism and working as an immigration recruiter. In 1908, she began a Magic Lantern tour in the American Midwest while revising the manuscript for her book, The New North. After its publication, she worked for the Canadian government in Britain for 2 years, promoting immigration using her Magic Lantern shows. While Cameron was considered progressive for her time, she still looked at the Canadian Prairie West through the lens of settler colonialism and the potential for white Europeans to thrive in the region. She focused on the value of immigration in relieving social distress in Europe, but paid no consideration to the needs of local Indigenous people.
I traveled across a prairie wheat field 1,000 miles long, into which the nationals of the world are pouring. We are on the heels of the greatest economic trek this world has ever seen. During my time in Winnipeg, a hardware store owner told me he had orders for 600 steam plows to be delivered to farmers the coming season. From the train, we watched the steam plows at work among the buffalo bones. The hard-working settlers gathered these bones and shipped them east to fertilizer factories. I hear a few made small fortunes in the process. The Canadian prairie is full of potential. The land stands ready to produce bread for the nations. Nature has done her part, now man must do his. Canada is a country with a meager past, a solid present, and an illimitable future. She, moreover, is the last unstaked empire under a white man's sky. In England, it takes a bishop to make a city, but here, the nucleus needed is a wheat elevator, red against the setting sun. During the long train trip passing through new farms, I could not help but think of the crowded cities of the old world, with their pale-cheeked children and fetid alleyways. Surely, in bringing the workless man of the old world to the manless work of the new, the Canadian government and the transportation companies are doing a bit of God's work. As Canadians, looking at this Western Canada which has arrived and thinking of the lands of Canada's fertile Northland and beyond, for the future we are full of optimism, and of the present we are glad.